Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something a little different. Usually, we're looking at the world around us, right? We're talking tech trends, history, economics, all the stuff happening out there.
Your external world.
Exactly. But today, we're turning that lens all the way around, inward. And I want to start with a question that, honestly, it made me a little uncomfortable when I was reading through the prep material.
It's a heavy one to start the day with, isn't it? It gets right in there.
It really does. So I want everyone listening to just, pause for a second. Think about your morning so far.
Okay.
You woke up, you turned off the alarm, maybe you hit snooze, no judgment. You walk to the kitchen, the cold floor on your feet, you poured the coffee.
Yep.
Maybe check your email or scrolled Instagram.
The usual routine.
The usual. Now, here's the question. How much of that did you consciously decide to do? And how much of it was just happening? Like you were a passenger in a car that was driving itself.
It's the unsettling reality of what we call living on autopilot. We love to think of ourselves as the CEO of our own lives,
Right.
Making these high-level executive decisions every second.
Right. I am in complete control.
But the reality and the research we've pulled together for this deep dive suggests this very strongly, is that a staggering percentage of our waking life is dictated by a hidden script. We are less like the pilot and more like the person watching the in-flight movie while the plane just flies itself.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're diving back into the framework of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, for listeners who've been with us for a while, we've touched on the B.
Behaviors.
And the E for emotions. But today, we're zeroing in on the C, the consequences, but specifically the mental chatter.
Yeah.
The narrative voice. We are talking about automatic thoughts.
And this is, I think, the layer of our experience that is the most deceptive.
How so?
Well, the reason it's so deceptive is that it sounds like us. When you have a thought, it sounds like your voice in your head. It uses your vocabulary. So you assume, naturally, I thought this, so I must believe it, and therefore it must be true.
It's my own voice, so it must be me.
Precisely. But as we dig into these materials, we're going to see that these automatic thoughts are often more like a biological reflex, like your leg kicking when the doctor hits your knee with that little hammer, than a reasoned, logical conclusion you've arrived at.
That's a key distinction we need to make really early on. It's a reflex. It's the brain's knee-jerk reaction. And the sources are pretty clear. And this is the part that might freak people out a bit. You cannot control this autopilot 100% of the time. If you think you could just brute force your mind into total silence or total control, you are fighting a losing battle against, millions of years of biology.
Exactly. The goal of this deep dive isn't to teach you how to turn off the autopilot. The biology of the brain simply won't allow that. I mean, you need the autopilot to survive. It regulates your breathing. It helps you drive without thinking about every single turn.
You'd be exhausted in 5 minutes.
Completely. The goal is to understand the programming so we don't crash the plane. We want to move from being a passive passenger to an active pilot who knows how and when to disengage the autopilot, especially when there's turbulence.
Okay, so let's get our definition straight before we go any deeper. What exactly are we talking about when we say automatic thoughts? Because I have a lot of thoughts. I'm thinking about the recording levels right now. I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch, probably a sandwich. Are those automatic thoughts?
That's a great question. In the strict context of the psychology sources we're looking at, not exactly what shall I have for lunch is usually a deliberate, conscious query. You're engaging your executive function. You're weighing options, turkey versus ham. An automatic thought is a subconscious interpretation of a situation that happens instantly. It's not the question. It's the answer that arrives before you even realize you asked the question.
Okay, give me a concrete example to anchor this.
Okay, let's say you text a friend and they don't reply for 3 hours. The deliberate thought might be, I wonder if they're busy at work.
Okay, that's me being rational.
That's your prefrontal cortex doing its job. The automatic thought is that instant flash of, they're ignoring me, I must have annoyed them, or maybe something terrible has happened to them. It's immediate.
It's that split-second judgment.
Yeah.
And it feels almost physical, like a drop in your stomach.
Precisely. And biologically, this is fascinating. It happens because of the way our brain architecture is built. We have the amygdala, the brain's ancient emotion center, and its threat detection system. It's the smoke detector. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, which is CEO, the logic center, the part that understands time and context and nuance. The research shows that the amygdala can trigger a reaction and an automatic thought milliseconds before the prefrontal cortex has even gotten out of bed.
So the alarm bells are ringing before the security guard has even looked at the monitors.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a biological shortcut. And we have to remember, this served us incredibly well when we were, running from predators on the savannah.
Right.
If you see a shadow in the grass, you don't want to stand there and contemplate the philosophical implications of a lion. You don't want to have a board meeting about the texture of the shadow. You want to run. The automatic thought, danger, saves your life. Speed was always more important than accuracy.
Right, because if you hesitate to check if it's really a lion, you get eaten.
Yeah.
If you run and it was just a rock, you feel a bit silly, but you're alive.
Exactly. We are the descendants of the anxious cavemen who ran away from rocks, the chill cavemen who waited around to verify the lion. Well, they didn't pass on their genes.
But in modern life, that's the whole problem, isn't it? We aren't dodging lions anymore. We're dodging passive-aggressive emails. We're dodging awkward elevator rides. And that same shortcut often leads us into a lot of trouble.
It leads to what the sources call a hijack, an amygdala hijack. We are reacting to modern social stressors, which are not actually life-threatening, with the same intensity and the same speed as life-or-death biological threats. Your boss frowning at you in a meeting triggers the same ancient machinery as a saber-toothed tiger staring you down.
I really like the analogy that came up in the source material about computers. I think this helps visualize it perfectly. They distinguish between the B, the underlying beliefs, and the C, these automatic thoughts. And they use this idea of the user interface versus the source code.
Yes, this is one of the most helpful mental models for understanding our own minds. Think about the laptop or the phone you're using right now. When you're using it, what do you see?
Icons, windows.
Right. You see windows, icons, a cursor, maybe a notification badge. You click a button and a window closes. That is the user interface. That is the C, the automatic thought. It's the surface level stuff we are conscious of. I can't do this presentation, or he is so annoying. That's just an icon on the screen.
Right. But here's the thing, and I catch myself doing this all the time. If I don't like what's on my screen, I try to change the screen. I try to force the thought away. But if I just, paint the screen a different color, or if I yell at the icon, it doesn't change how the computer actually works, because underneath that interface is the B.
The source code. The beliefs. Deep down in the machine, there are lines and lines of zeros and ones, hidden circuits, and complex logic gates that dictate exactly what happens when you click that mouse. We rarely see the code. In fact, most of us don't even know how to read it. But that code is the absolute ruler of the interface.
So let's play this out. If I have an automatic thought that pops up like an error message, say I'm given a new task at work, and my brain instantly says, I'm going to fail at this. That's just the error window popping up.
Correct. That is the UI telling you something is wrong, according to its programming. It's a pop-up.
But the cause of that error isn't the task itself. It's a line of faulty code buried deep in my belief system.
Exactly. And this distinction is crucial because we spend so much of our energy trying to swat away the flies, the automatic thoughts, without ever realizing there is something rotting in the room that's attracting them in the first place.
Wow.
Core beliefs are the ultimate patterns. They are hard to change. They are the operating system.
Yeah.
Automatic thoughts are just the fleeting notifications that the system produces based on that operating system.
Which explains why just trying to think positive, the classic, just look on the bright side, often feels so hollow, so fake.
It feels fake because it is.
You're trying to close the error window without fixing the bug in the code.
You're putting a sticky note with a smiley face over a system failure warning. The system is still failing underneath. And actually, the sources suggest that this can make things worse, which we'll definitely get to later when we talk about toxic positivity. But first, I think we need to understand why the code is written this way. Why is the default code often so negative? Why does it seem so buggy?
Yeah, let's unpack that. Because if our thoughts are often wrong or negative or even self-destructive, why on earth did we evolve this way? You'd think evolution would want us to be optimistic and accurate. Wouldn't an accurate view of reality be better for survival?
You would think so, but no, not necessarily. Evolution doesn't care about your happiness. It cares about your survival and reproduction.
It's a pretty cold calculus.
It is. And thoughts, interestingly enough, are the youngest evolutionary trait. They're the newest feature. We had physiological reactions, adrenaline, heart rate, and we had basic emotions like fear and anger long before we had complex linguistic thoughts about them.
So thoughts are the new kid on the block. They're still working out the kinks.
They really are. And the brain uses thoughts to capture and interpret reality. But here's the catch, and this is a bit of a mind bender from the sources. The brain does not show us objective truth. It can't. It filters reality to show us what we need to see to survive.
There was that comparison to the light spectrum in the reading. I found that really grounding.
Right. Think about it. Our eyes only see a tiny fraction of the full light spectrum, what we call visible light. We don't see ultraviolet, we don't see infrared, we don't see radio waves, but those things exist. They are all around us right now.
We just don't have the hardware to perceive them.
Exactly, because we didn't need to see radio waves to find berries or avoid tigers. Similarly, our thoughts only capture a tiny fraction of psychological reality. They are symbols, they are maps, they are not the territory itself.
This leads to what has to be the golden rule of this entire deep dive, and if listeners take only one thing away, it should probably be this. Thoughts are not facts.
I want to repeat that because it goes against everything our brain tells us every second of the day. A thought is a suggestion. It is a hypothesis. It is not a fact. Just because you think I am a loser does not make it objectively true any more than thinking I am a bird makes you suddenly able to fly.
But it feels so real in the moment. That's the trap, isn't it? When that automatic thought hits, it comes with this emotional punch that seems to validate it. It feels true because it hurts so much.
That's the amygdala again. It tags the thought with a strong emotion, usually fear or shame, to make you pay attention. It's like a highlighter pen for your brain. It's screaming, pay attention to this, it feels scary. But just because a movie's scary doesn't mean the monster on the screen is real. The brain is an excellent special effects artist.
Okay, let's make this concrete because it's still a bit abstract.
Right.
We have a great case study from the source material that traces a seemingly simple situation all the way down to the scary source code. It's the cake scenario.
Ah, yes, this is a classic example of how deep the rabbit hole goes. So imagine you are standing in a cafe. You see a delicious piece of chocolate cake in the display case. It's got that rich, dark frosting, maybe a strawberry on top.
Okay, I'm there. I can smell the coffee. The cake looks amazing. I can literally feel my mouth watering.
So that's step one, the physiological trigger. Your body wants dopamine. You have a craving. That's biological. You can't really control that. But then the automatic thought kicks in. The user interface pops up on your mental screen. What does it say?
I shouldn't eat this. I'll get fat.
Right. Now stop there. On the surface, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable diet decision. It sounds like a rational health choice. I am watching my intake.
That sounds responsible.
It does. But if we use the techniques from the source material, specifically something called the downward arrow technique to dig for the B, the belief, we find something much, much darker. So we ask the question, why is getting fat bad in this person's internal code? Yeah. What's the fear there?
Well, looking at the case study, the source suggests there's an intermediate belief, which is usually an if-then rule. These are the rules we learn to live by. In this case, it might be something like, if I am thin, then others will like me. Or the inverse, if I gain weight, then I will be rejected.
Exactly. See how quickly we've moved from calories to social rejection? We're not talking about health anymore. But we aren't at the bottom of the rabbit hole yet. We have to ask again. And if I am rejected, what does that mean? Why is that so terrible?
Right. What's the consequence of that?
If we dig even deeper underneath that if-then rule, we finally hit the core belief, the source code. Why is it so terrifying to be rejected?
Because I am not worthy of love. Or maybe my existence requires external validation.
Whoa! Just stop and appreciate what just happened. We went from, I probably shouldn't have a brownie, to, I am fundamentally unworthy of love in about 3 seconds flat.
That is terrifyingly fast. And it explains why the emotional reaction to a piece of cake can feel so strong. It's not about the cake.
That is the speed of the autopilot. The thought about the cake isn't really about calories at all. It is a surface-level manifestation of a deep-seated fear of abandonment or unworthiness. The automatic thought acts like a guard dog, barking at the cake to protect you from the much deeper pain of feeling worthless.
That is heavy, but it makes so much sense. It explains why people get so disproportionately emotional about things that seem trivial to an outsider. It's never just about the cake. It's never just about the dishes not being done. It's about what those things mean to our internal security system.
It's rarely about the cake. It's about what the cake represents in your source code. And this applies to everything: work, relationships, hobbies. When you feel a disproportionate emotional reaction to something small, that is a huge red flag that you've just bumped into a core belief.
I want to pivot to another scenario from the sources because this one, This one hit me hard. I think everyone listening has had this experience. It's the work colleague scenario. This is where we start talking about how our autopilot affects how we see and treat other people.
Yes, the daily annoyances of social interaction. This is where the concept of projection comes in, and it's a tricky one to accept.
So picture this. You're in a team meeting. It's dragging on.
Yeah.
And there is that one colleague, the other one. Let's call him Gary. Every time there's a pause, Gary's hand shoots up.
Oh, Gary.
He speaks at length. He uses big words he probably doesn't understand. He loves the sound of his own voice. He just has to be the center of attention.
Okay, I can see Gary clearly in my mind's eye. I've worked with Gary. I might have been Gary at some points in my life, if I'm being honest. Now, me be honest. What is the automatic thought that pops up for you in that moment, seeing Gary's hand go up again?
Oh, here we go again. He's wasting all of our time. He's so arrogant. He just wants the spotlight. And underneath all that, just sit down and shut up, Gary.
And the physical reaction, the feeling.
Total irritation.
Yeah.
Judgment. My blood pressure goes up. I'm rolling my eyes internally. Maybe I'm even checking my phone to show him I'm not listening to send a signal.
Okay, now here is where the sources throw a massive curveball.
Yeah.
They introduce this concept of projection, and the expert insight here is really challenging. Your irritation says more about you than it does about Gary.
I hate hearing that.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Because he is annoying, objectively, the meeting is running over, people want to go to lunch.
Is he annoying objectively? Or is he just a person behaving in a certain way and your internal filter, your source code, is labeling that behavior as annoying? The source quotes Carl Jung here. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves.
Okay, so if I'm sitting there just fuming because this guy is taking up space, why is that a threat to me? Why do I care so much? What's the me?
That is the million-dollar question. Why is the observer meaning you threatened by Gary's behavior? The source outlines a few possibilities. 1, is it a threat to your persona? Say you are the manager of the meeting. Are you worried that his talking is ruining your meeting and therefore making you look incompetent or out of control?
That's definitely possible.
Yeah.
I need to control this room, and he's taking control away from me. So it's a dominance thing.
It could be. But let's look at option 2, which is often more common and frankly harder to admit. Is it hidden envy?
Envy. Of Gary. No way. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want people to roll their eyes at me.
Dig a little deeper. Is there a part of you that wishes you felt free enough to take up that much space, to speak your mind without worrying if you were boring people, to demand attention without feeling the need to apologize for it?
Oof, okay. That stings a little.
So you're saying I might be jealous that he has the audacity to do what I'm too afraid to do myself?
It's very, very common. Many of us are taught from a young age that it's bad or rude to seek attention. That's our source code again. Be humble, be quiet, don't make a fuss.
Right. Good kids are seen and not heard.
Exactly. So when we see someone else brazenly violating that rule and, crucially, getting away with it, he's not being fired, right? Our shadow, which is that locked away part of ourselves that also wants attention, starts screaming in protest. We project our own suppressed desire onto him, and then we label it as arrogance to make ourselves feel morally superior.
So I judge him to protect myself from the uncomfortable realization that I'm actually inhibited.
Precisely. And there was a visual in the notes about pointing a finger that sums this up perfectly. Yes. When you point one finger at someone else in judgment, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you.
It's a cliche for a reason. It's true. The automatic thought, he is arrogant, is actually a mirror. It's reflecting your own insecurity about being seen or your own suppressed desires to take up more space.
And you can see the energy-saving mechanism here, can't you? It is so much easier for your brain to say, Gary is the problem, than to say, I have deep, unresolved issues from my childhood regarding self-worth and attention-seeking.
Of course. The automatic thought saves you from having to do that deep, painful work. It's a defense mechanism. It shifts the pain outward. I'm not the problem. He is. And that keeps your ego safe. It keeps you comfortable in your righteousness, even if it makes you miserable in every single meeting.
This brings us to a term that came up repeatedly in the text we reviewed, cognitive dissonance. I feel like this is a term people throw around a lot at dinner parties, but what does it actually mean in this specific context?
Cognitive dissonance is, at its core, simply the mental stress or discomfort you experience when reality doesn't match your internal patterns or your beliefs. The brain hates this. It absolutely craves consistency and predictability.
Okay, so let's go back to Gary the colleague. My internal belief, my source code, might be good employees are humble and quiet.
Right. That's rule #1 in your internal manual. And reality presents you with Gary, who is loud and boastful, but maybe also successful, or at least still employed. Maybe the boss even seems to like his initiative.
And that creates a glitch in my matrix. My brain goes, wait a minute. If the rule is be quiet to be safe, and he is loud and safe, then my rule might be wrong.
Exactly. And that possibility that your fundamental rule about how the world works is wrong is terrifying to the subconscious. It causes intense stress, dissonance. The world isn't behaving according to my manual. So the brain has to fix that stress immediately. It has to close that gap. And it uses what we call cognitive distortions to bridge that gap.
These are the thinking errors, the mental gymnastics we do to make the world fit our beliefs, instead of changing our beliefs to fit the world.
Yes. And the most common one mentioned in the source is generalization. You take one specific event and you blow it up into a universal rule. Gary speaks up once or twice in a meeting, and your brain doesn't say Gary spoke up twice. It says he always ruins meetings.
He never listens. He is totally useless. All those absolute words.
Yes, those absolutes, always, never, totally, everyone, no one, are the hallmarks of a cognitive distortion. And the source gives a great evolutionary route for this. If you're walking in the woods and you see a bear once.
You assume bears are always in the woods from now on.
Correct. It is a much safer survival strategy to assume the woods are full of bears than to assume that was a rare one-time encounter. It saves processing power and it keeps you alive. But in a modern office, assuming your colleague is always an idiot because of one comment prevents you from ever seeing their actual value. You literally stop hearing their good ideas because your brain's filter has already labeled them bad source.
We talked about generalization.
Yeah.
What were some of the other big distortions the source highlighted? Because I recognized a few of my own personal favorites in there.
Oh, we all have our favorites. Catastrophizing is a big one. This is the snowball effect of thinking. It starts small and rolls downhill into an avalanche. This presentation didn't go perfectly.
So my boss will be disappointed.
So I won't get the promotion.
So I'm going to get fired, and then I'll lose my house, and I'll die alone under a bridge.
It goes from 0 to 100 in seconds. And what's crazy is that it feels totally logical while you're doing it. Each step seems to follow the last one. Well, obviously step A leads to step Z.
Yeah, it's a story, a horror story.
It feels logical because it follows a narrative arc, but it ignores probability and context. It's just the brain preparing for the absolute worst-case scenario, just in case. Then there's mind reading.
Oh, this one's bad. I walked past my boss in the hallway and she didn't smile. She thinks I'm incompetent.
Yes, you're projecting your own insecurity into her head and then reading it back as if it were a direct quote, a fact. In reality, she might just have a headache, or be thinking about her own lunch, or be stressed about something completely unrelated to you.
Or she just literally didn't see you.
Exactly. But the mind-reading distortion doesn't allow for neutral explanations. It almost always assumes a negative judgment that is directed specifically at you. It's very narcissistic in a way.
And the last big one was black and white thinking.
All or nothing thinking. If I don't get a perfect score, I am a total failure. I am either a good person or I am a bad person. There is no gray area. This is very common in perfectionism. It's binary code for a complex analog world.
It's amazing because when you list them out like this, they sound ridiculous. They sound so obviously flawed. But when you're in the middle of one, it feels like absolute undeniable truth.
That is the power of the autopilot. It masquerades as reality. It's a very convincing illusionist.
So hearing all this, that our thoughts are negative, they're distorted, they're just protective reflexes, the natural instinct is to say, okay, I get it. I need to force myself to think positively. I need to stand in front of the mirror and say, I am a champion. I am loved. Everybody likes me. I need to, manifest greatness.
Yeah, and the sources have a very, very strong warning about this. They call it the danger of toxic positivity, or, more simply, the denial mechanism.
Why is that dangerous? Shouldn't we try to be positive? Isn't that the whole point of self-help?
Think back to the computer analogy we used earlier. If your source code, your core belief, is hardwired to be, I am worthless, and you stand in front of a mirror shouting, I am a champion, what happens inside the machine?
The computer crashes.
Yeah.
Or it just laughs at you. It knows it's not true.
It creates a massive conflict, cognitive dissonance. Again, you are trying to overwrite deep foundational code with a flimsy surface-level command. You cannot fix a virus in the source code by just painting the computer screen a brighter color. In fact, it often backfires spectacularly. The brain rejects the affirmation because it knows it's a lie, according to its own internal database. It can trigger what's called the boomerang effect. You say, I am beautiful, And your subconscious brain immediately whispers, no, you're not. Remember that time in 7th grade? Even louder than before.
So you feel even worse because now you're not just a failure, you're also a liar who can't even do positivity right?
Exactly. You feel like a fraud. And it leads to repression and denial. The source mentions that people who are constantly forcing happiness or only watching comedies or refusing to ever acknowledge sadness are often engaging in a powerful defense mechanism.
You're gaslighting yourself. That phrase really stood out.
Yes. If a situation warrants sadness, if you lost something important, or you failed at something you cared about, or you are hurt, you need to feel that. The advice from the expert source is to allow space for those so-called negative emotions. Don't wallow in them for weeks, but don't deny their existence. You have to acknowledge the glitch before you can even begin to fix the code. You have to be able to say, I'm feeling sad right now, and that's okay, rather than, I shouldn't be sad, I must be happy.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem in excruciating detail. We are running on buggy software, we project our issues onto others, we distort reality to feel safe, and then we lie to ourselves with forced positivity. This sounds a little bleak. How do we actually break the cycle? What are the practical tools?
It's not bleak, it's just mechanical. And the good news is, because it's mechanical, we can engineer a solution.
Okay.
But the first thing you have to accept is that catching these thoughts in the moment, right when Gary raises his hand, or right when you see the cake in the shop window, is extremely difficult.
Because the amygdala has already hijacked the car. You're gone.
You're gone. When you're triggered, your stress hormones are high, your cortisol is pumping, and your executive function, your smart, logical brain, is very low. It's offline. You are in fight or flight mode. You are not going to have a calm philosophical breakthrough when you're seeing red. You are chemically impaired.
So don't beat yourself up if you snap at the colleague and then regret it 5 minutes later.
Correct. Guilt is not a useful tool here. Awareness is. The single most effective tool mentioned in all the material is retrospective analysis. Think of it like a sports team watching the game tape the day after the match.
A daily review.
Yes. At the end of the day, when you are calm, when the cortisol has flushed out of your system, sit down and replay the tape of the day. Pick one moment where you felt a strong emotion, anger at the meeting, shame at the cafe, anxiety about an email. And ask yourself, what was the exact thought right before the emotion hit?
You're retracing the steps. Okay, I felt angry. Why? Because Gary raised his hand.
Yeah.
What did I think? I thought, he's disrespecting me and my time.
And once you isolate that specific thought in the cool, calm light of the evening, you can interrogate it like a detective. Was that thought helpful? Was it actually 100% true? Is there another possible explanation? Could he just be eager? Could he be insecure and trying to prove himself? This practice slowly but surely trains your brain. It's all about pattern recognition.
So if I do this every night, eventually I'll start seeing the pattern before I react. Or maybe as I'm reacting.
Exactly. It's like building a muscle at the gym. You can't lift the heavy weight on day one, but over time you start catching the thoughts faster and faster. First you catch it hours later, then minutes later, then you catch it and you can say, oh, there's that he's disrespecting me thought again. Interesting. Eventually, you can catch them in real time.
And that leads to the concept of the gap, which I loved.
The gap, it's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, famously talked about this. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response.
And the autopilot tries to close that gap to zero. Instant reaction.
Our job is to widen it, even if it's just for half a second.
Just enough time to ask, wait, is that a fact or is that just a thought?
That's it. That split second is freedom. And a huge part of widening that gap is learning not to identify with the thought.
This sounds a little bit spiritual, but it's grounded in the psychology here.
It is, very much so. The idea is to treat the thought as a suggestion from an automated system, not a command from your soul. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of the thoughts.
I love the image of the thought being like the notification on a phone. I can look at it and just swipe it away. I don't have to open the app. I don't have to act on it.
Precisely. Oh, there is the I'm stupid notification popping up again. Thanks, brain. Not helpful right now. And you just let it go. You don't argue with it. You don't fight it. You just acknowledge it as a piece of automated spam from a faulty mechanism. It takes all the power away from the thought.
The course also briefly mentioned the ABCDE method. You touched on A, activating event, B, belief, and C, consequence. What are D and E?
We'll likely go deeper into this in a future deep dive on changing beliefs. But briefly, D is for dispute. That's where you actively challenge the thought with evidence. Is it really true that I always fail? No, I succeeded at that project last week. You act as your own lawyer, cross-examining the thought.
Okay.
And E is for effect, which is the new, more balanced feeling you get after you've successfully disputed and reframed the thought. But honestly, for now, just focusing on A, B, and C catching the thought is a massive, massive step forward.
So let's bring this all home. What does this all mean for the listener right now, who's maybe driving their car or washing their dishes and feeling a little overwhelmed by all this?
It means you have more control than you think, but less direct control than you might hope. You cannot stop the automatic trigger. You cannot stop the initial thought from popping up on your screen. That's biology. That's the monkey brain doing its job. But you can control whether you click on it. You can control whether you accept that thought as the truth.
You are the editor, not the original writer.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The writer is a manic, paranoid monkey typing away. The editor needs to be the calm, rational adult who comes in and says, yeah, we're not publishing that.
So to summarize the key takeaways from our deep dive into the sources today. Number 1, automatic thoughts are the user interface of our deeper beliefs. They are surface-level indicators of that much deeper hidden code. Number 2, they are not facts. They are fast, protective, evolutionary interpretations designed for survival, not for accuracy. A thought is just a hypothesis.
A suggestion.
Number 3, what irritates us in others, like that annoying colleague, is often a projection. It's a mirror for our own hidden rules, our own shadows, and our own insecurities.
The 3 fingers pointing back.
Exactly. Number 4, toxic positivity doesn't work. You can't just paint over the rust. You have to acknowledge the negative feeling to actually process it and move on.
Right.
And finally, we build awareness through retrospective review. Watch the game tape of your day to slowly, gradually widen that gap between stimulus and response.
That sums it up perfectly.
So here is the homework for everyone listening. The sources suggest a simple daily review. Tonight, before you go to sleep, take 5 minutes. You don't need a journal, just your own brain. Pick one moment from today where your emotions spiked. Positive or negative, doesn't matter. Identify the automatic thought that triggered it. And then ask yourself one simple question. Is this thought a fact, or is it a filter?
And be kind to yourself in the process. You're looking at code that was written a long, long time ago, maybe when you were 5 years old. It takes time to debug an old system.
It's a software update, not a full system reboot.
Exactly.
I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on, something that wasn't fully resolved. We talked a lot about negative automatic thoughts. But what about the positive ones? If thoughts aren't facts, are your good thoughts also just illusions? If you think, I'm great at this, is that just another helpful distortion? And does it even matter if it helps you survive and thrive?
That is a dangerous and fascinating question.
Something to mull over. Thank you for diving deep with us today. Remember, changing the autopilot takes time, but awareness is always the first step to upgrading the code.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.